And we are recording. Steven, welcome to the Honey Badger Diaries. Hang on. Hang on, I'm having an issue with my mic. Are you hearing?
All right, I can hear you.
Hang on. Yeah, but no, I'm having a slight issue. I think there's a problem with my USB cable. Let's see, is it working? Yeah, okay. All right. I think I'm just gonna cut this out. We'll probably.
Right.
I'll keep it in the YouTube version. Probably. I don't cut these at all. But let's just continue. I'll just start anew. Steven, welcome to the Honey Badger Diaries.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on. We've never met. I don't know who you are, and I think most of my audience will also not know who you are. So maybe we should start with who are you? Introduce yourself.
Steven Ettinger. I am just a developer on, well, I was Steam, now on Hive. I get around a lot because I don't really have a house. I have a backpack and a electric unicycle, so I just travel around a lot. And when I saw that everything was getting kind of like south, I was in like Southern California where rent was really expensive, and I was like, I'm just gonna be stuck inside anyway. I should just like leave. And
When was this?
March 8th was when I noticed. Nothing was like. I left on March 12th.
So you noticed on the 8th, and 4 days later you were out of the country.
Yes.
And now you are in Quito, in Ecuador. Mm-hmm. Why Quito?
My plan was initially to go to a little beach town here called Montanita. I have a lot of friends down here, and we're gonna meet up, just hang out on the beach. But I didn't make it there because as soon as I landed here, they closed the border and put me in a 2-week quarantine because I was coming from America. I was not expecting that to happen so fast.
Interesting. So that was on the 14th of April. 14th of March.
Yeah, on the 13th of March.
13th. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I landed and they.
So they already had a. Okay, so talk me through the story then about what has been going on in Ecuador. It's been in the news in the last couple of days. We'll get to that in a minute. But you got there. So about what is this? 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, yeah.
Then already you were put into quarantine for how long?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So apparently everyone arriving in Ecuador goes into quarantine right now?
Nobody's arriving in Ecuador. They closed all of their international borders on the 16th. So almost as soon as I got here, they were just like, no more. That's in or out. That's on airplanes or ships or anything.
Right. Interesting. Okay. So was it already escalating at that point, or did they just take these measures very early on? What has been happening in Ecuador? Can you walk me through this?
I think they were as suspicious as all of the other countries about what was actually happening. And then at the same time as everybody else, I know Ecuador was either the first to announce that they were closing their borders down here. So I thought they were taking it more seriously than everybody else. And maybe it was because they already knew what was happening or had more information than the rest of us. Who knows?
Were they the first Latin American country to close the borders or anything like that? Yeah. Interesting. And at that, do you know how many like confirmed cases there were at that point, or how many deaths, or do you know that?
When I was coming down here, there were like 20 cases and maybe one death, maybe two.
Right. So they definitely closed their borders early then, but it apparently didn't help because over the past couple of weeks it has been escalating. Are there? Do you know what do I ask first? Let me first ask, what has been the measures in Ecuador itself? Has there been some kind of lockdown, or what has been the policy there?
Yeah, initially the policy was they were closing all of the restaurants. They weren't letting anybody who was older than like 50 or something like operate in stores. So like,
so they
if
had
you had a family store, Yeah, they had an age limit. So if you had a family store, you had to be between 18 and it was like 50 or 60 just to work in the store. And if you didn't have anybody in those age range, your store is closed. And then it just got more and more restrictive because they just had too many people doing things. And it's mostly because there's poor people who don't have a place to go and they all live together. A lot of people don't have running water either, so like it's impossible for them to stay in one place.
Right. So the rules were actually pretty strict, but people were just ignoring it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in Guayaquil especially, people were ignoring it more, and it's not like they had a choice in some manners.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Actually, what was you were in quarantine for 2 weeks? What did that look like? Was that just your own place, or
Yeah, I'm just at an Airbnb here in Quito. I have an entire building to myself. In a normally it's a pretty touristy place, but there is nobody around. It's just deserted.
the whole city is?
Pretty much. Like I could like go sunbathe on my roof and hear birds and stuff. Like it takes a while before you even hear a car go by.
Right. And so they had these step by step restrictions, starting with these age limits and getting stricter over time as the escalation didn't improve. Was not only not improving but getting worse, I assume.
Right.
And
Um,
what is the case right now? How strict is the lockdown at this point in time?
so our current or our lockdown goes from 2 p.m. until 5 in the morning. So if you have any business to do, you have to be doing it at that time. Restaurants are still operating for takeout, so like Uber Eats works. There's a few other like things like Uber Eats down here that work as well. Um, Other than that, you can drive a car in your own city. Like you can't go between regions here at all, but you can drive your car. It's like once every 5 days based on the last digit of your license plate. So it's pretty strict, and most people aren't doing anything outside other than going to the supermarket.
Hmm. And I saw some videos online of police going around shooting people, or I don't know what they were doing, but it seemed pretty intense.
Yeah, those were they have paintball guns, so they were enforcing quarantine by shooting people with paintballs.
Really, literally paintballs.
Literally paintballs. There were other videos where instead of like arresting people, they would like have them get down and like hit them or cane them or do anything else, and then tell them to go home. Um, so
How
that's probably a better idea than to put people together in prisons, but it's
how
just weird.
yeah, how are people responding to that? Because I saw this tweet and I saw some comments, which obviously is not representative of anything. They were just free comments, but these were people sort of encouraging it and saying that was a good idea. Is that the general impression you're getting? Is that this is supported by people?
Most of the people that I see in Quito are wearing face masks. They understand like that this is pretty serious, and I think they're encouraging like especially these non-lethal kind of ways to get people to stay inside.
Right. Do you know what kind of statistics? So, what are the current statistics as it comes to cases? Is usually not very reliable, but maybe cases or hospitalizations, deaths, whatever you have.
After all of these videos started appearing on Twitter, the government promised to be a lot more transparent. So they put out the death certificates issued in Guayas province for like January, February, and March, and then also for March of 2018, 19, and 2020. And it looks like no matter which metric you looked at, there is about 1,500 more people that died in the Guayas province just in March. And now they're having an extra like 500 people a day that are dying in different places. So at
Mhm.
home and in hospitals.
How many people are in that? How many people are in Ecuador? Like, help me with the scale here. How much?
So Ecuador has, I think it's about 17 million people. The Guayas province probably has 3 million, and it's the biggest city. It's right on the coast. They normally have about 30 to 40 people a day die in
Right.
Guayas
And
province.
now that's how much did you say?
And now they're having between like 150 to 500, depending on who sets the number.
Right. That's a lot. And then, okay, so let's get to these videos you mentioned. So there's been videos going over social media of rooms, hospitals full of body bags. I think it were hospitals. I would assume full of body bags, and streets full of body bags. Deaf people. What's going on there?
So normally, like the death process here is like if you die, your family will announce the death, and the people in the neighborhood can come by and verify that the body is who it is. You get a death certificate, and then you take your body with everybody else in a funeral procession to the cemetery, and you bury your loved ones. But now those things aren't happening because it takes like a week to issue a death certificate. There isn't anybody who has protective equipment to come by and pick up bodies. They started issuing cardboard caskets because nobody else has like actual caskets. So it's just a scale issue that they have.
And yeah, so and what about, so people are being left on the street for, well, literally dead.
Hmm.
I can only imagine that. I mean, what's that like? Have you seen this?
I haven't seen any of that here in Quito, and it's like that everywhere because if there's just like one person that dies in your town, even if it's exponential, your hospital's not going to notice one a day or two a day or four a day. But when it gets to like 30 to 60, then it starts to get an issue. So our numbers in Quito are going up, and we're trying, and I know everybody else here is trying to like stay indoors and minimize contact as much as possible, but like nobody here knows that it's going to stop because they all have seen this on social media.
Why do you think this is happening to this extent in Ecuador specifically compared to other countries? Are they just ahead of the curve, or is their hospital system usually very weak already? Or
Um, Ecuador kind of got hit with like this big economic shitstorm. It like oil went down, and that's their number one export. Of course, everybody else is doing their things. They don't have their own central bank, so they have U.S. dollars. So when the United States issues $2 trillion more into the economy, that devalues what Ecuador already has. So they're fighting an uphill battle. All of their sovereign debt gets downgraded. So like their bond status right now is like triple C minus or something. So they're paying like 30 cents or 30% interest just to get some humanitarian funds in a lot of cases.
yeah, so
So
they're go on.
Um, so in addition to that, the reason a lot of people here think WISE is getting much or hit much harder is because they had like their school break is at a different time. So a lot of them were on vacation to different places and are just returning from different places. And here in Quito, they just closed the schools down and nobody got to go on vacation, which means nobody was coming back from vacation either.
Yeah, you mentioned that Ecuador is running on the dollar basically. Don't they also have their own currency, their own cryptocurrency, basically the national cryptocurrency? That was Ecuador, no?
I I don't think anything official has happened yet. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm down here, of course, is because I'm in cryptocurrency and I like getting into this kind of stuff. But as far as I know, no. Um, Ecuador is more or less a puppet state, kind of,
Right.
just with the dollar.
So basically, Ecuador was hit hard by the virus, and at the same time, they're hit hard economically. So this combination is causing this awful shitstorm,
Hmm.
basically. Um, do you think it's improving now? I did read that the president at least promised that they would clean up the bodies from the streets, and is that
Right.
happening? Is there?
Right. I've seen a lot less videos and a lot less complaining about bodies in the street, mostly because the military has been tasked with taking those away now. So they've been collecting those as they've been called in, and they have been giving out like really transparent statistics on like how many calls their 911 system has gotten in a month and stuff like that. So like they're being pretty honest about the scale. And it's pretty scary when you're there. Like they had 7,500 calls to take away bodies. You don't know how many of those are duplicates, but that's how much volume there was actually to answer, and that's just absurd.
All right. Do you know what the plan is now? Is there a plan? Do you know if there's a strategy how to deal with the virus from now on?
I know most of their plan has been around how, because initially when they went into lockdown, they said we're not doing any more funeral processions. Everybody's getting cremated. All bodies are having being cremated, but they didn't have any. Nobody has the capacity to do this much like bodies, So it's getting better, and um, it's kind of like New York City. There's 500 people a day dying in New York City, but you just don't get to see it. So it's just a lot more visceral here.
Yeah,
That's all.
because they don't know how to deal with the bodies. You would say that's the main difference, not so much the number of deaths. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah, it does suck because there are a lot less ventilators and beds here, but at the same time, like a lot of these people in New York, they're saying like, don't even bring them in. So how much different is the healthcare going to be?
Yeah. What about the policy to deal with the virus itself, not with the bodies, but are there? So they're on a lockdown now. I think there's. So you mentioned full travel restrictions, and
Hmm.
that's just gonna. Is there an exit plan? Do you have any idea what they want to
The
do next couple of weeks, months, years?
They were supposed to come out of their initial lockdown on the 5th. They extended their lockdown until the end of April. Um, they have been setting up a lot of additional like beds and stuff in different places, so like soccer fields, certain schools, but most of those still don't have ventilators and stuff. So as far as treatment options, it kind of sucks.
Right. Do you have any perspective on this? Do you think they're approaching this the right way, or do you see anything, any difference with how they're dealing with it in the States where you're from?
Um, the States, I think, is kind of just a nice hodgepodge. I didn't want to be there because I know American has too many freedoms. I didn't want to see how those freedoms mixed with something like this, especially when not a lot of people are believing that's even happening. So
So what's your concern there?
um, I didn't get to where I wanted to go, which is by the beach. So I was hoping just to get out of the city. Living in Los Angeles and not being able to find toilet paper and stuff didn't appeal to me.
Do you think
So
shit is
here,
gonna hit the fan in the States?
I mean, in some places it already has because like you're paying a lot more for a bag of rice or some like or rent. So I'm pretty happy not to be in the United States right now.
That's actually the reason you got out, is because you thought you'd rather not be in the States when something like this happens.
Hmm. Just
And
because, yeah, I don't know. Like right now, there's like the governor in California is doing a pretty good job, so I probably would have been pretty safe there. But there was no guarantee, and there's no like national plan.
yeah. So what you actually prefer a stronger state approach then?
Um, Not usually. Usually, I'm super libertarian. I just don't trust people with the absence of freedoms, and especially don't trust governments with additional authority.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I was asking. Like, most people in this industry are libertarians, maybe especially if they're from the States as well. So I was wondering how you reconcile that for yourself.
Yeah, that's been a kind of a learning experience. One of the things also is like I kind of want to have more empathy for like the direction I want to see society go, because of course, like everybody has to get there. We can't just start with people in America or um, are you from the Netherlands?
Yeah, yeah. So when do you think you're gonna be able to travel to this beach you wanted to go to?
My friends weren't even able to make it to the beach. They're still in Peru. Um, I'm not sure. My flight out of here was for April 29th. I don't think that'll be honored, but I'm not really in any hurry to get any particular place.
So for now, you're locked up in Quito in an Airbnb.
Hmm. That's not the worst thing ever. I have internet.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Is there anything else we should discuss before we make an end to this call?
No, I don't think so. It was nice talking to you, though.
Yeah, it was very interesting to hear this Ecuadorian perspective. So thanks for that, and good luck with your situation. I hope you make it to the beach eventually.
I'll make it there eventually. Thanks.
All right, cheers.
All right, bye.